While we're on the topic, guys, let's talk about the new race war, huh? Let's talk about how every race is at war. Let's get into it.
I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe that all lives matter, but right now, black lives are the ones under attack.
Right. All lives matter, but the black ones matter more. Not Asian lives, Mexican lives, Indian lives, Middle Eastern lives, or white lives. None of those have a more important struggle than the black one. Is anyone tired of this yet? Is anyone tired of the female pastor with the LGBTQ sash and her openly racist tier of which race matters the most? I think people actually are, especially when it comes to BLM, because some of the most outspoken people against Black Lives Matter right now are actually black people.
I am very confused why it was an issue when people said all lives matter. I never got why saying all lives matter was an attack on black people. I never understood that in my entire life, right? Yeah, it like kind of encompasses everything, but people would get so upset about saying all lives matter. I just don't get it.
It was a scam. It was literally a scam. They had bought mansions and...
Now, BLM didn't start with this, but they are probably...
Oh, hey, man, how apropos is this? Man, how apropos is this? That is wild. Okay, let's keep going here.
Most famous right now for defending George Floyd and causing massive riots over a guy who was about to drive while intoxicated on fentanyl. If you actually watch the arrest video, which it seems like nobody who supports BLM did, he is very obviously on drugs and could have easily fallen asleep at the wheel and plowed his car into multiple people. Most importantly, none of the drama would have even happened if he wasn't very actively resisting arrest in the face of cops who were trying to accommodate him.
Can you please back it for me, please?
Yes,
Remember, man, stay with me, man.
I will.
Please stay with me, man. Thank you.
Listen.
Yeah, guys, I'll say it, man. I think being on at least 5 different types of drugs like fentanyl and methamphetamines at the same time while driving is probably not a good thing to do.
Hey, man.
Listen.
I'm not that kind of guy.
I'll roll the windows down
Please,
and put the
man.
legs in, all right? I'll
Y'all
put the air
keep me
on.
stop.
So because of the relentless false narratives, open and belligerent racism against white people, and the physical damage from riots that's been done to many different communities, more and more people are starting to reject all of the race...
Not to mention, I think he was on caffeine. I think he had a white monster before driving this, and that's horrifying.
...that traditionally has worked very well. And proof of this comes in the form of an event that BLM and other forces are trying to turn into a race war. Which brings us to a track meet in Frisco, Texas on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. A 17-year-old high school student named Carmelo Anthony stabbed and killed another 17-year-old named Austin Metcalf.
Oh my God, bro, this shit was insane. I know what's about to be brought up. I cannot believe that a black kid who killed a white kid received a $500,000 GoFundMe for murdering another kid. This shit was insane.
After this happened, a Give Send Go fundraiser was made to help with Carmelo's legal defense, and it raised hundreds of thousands of dollars with supporters of Carmelo and BLM activists not only saying a bunch of racist shit and approving of the murder, but also saying that Carmelo is innocent.
Honestly, even if Carmelo stabbed Austin for no reason at all, I'd still donate and support. Whites have gotten away with killing us for hundreds of years. I could care less about white lives. I will also be real. Generational hate and generational guilt is one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever heard in my entire life. I don't know why, as myself, a white guy, am I being guilted for 300 years ago, 200 years ago, one of my relatives owned a slave, which, by the way, my family's from Scotland, so I was never a slave owner, but even me, I got my ass whooped growing up multiple times a month just for being white for this shit. Now, obviously, it doesn't happen to everybody, but I think that people should be guilted for the things they've done, not the things their ancestors have done. I mean, it's already bad enough with people guilting me for what my dad did, and it's like, what's that got to do with me? Do you know how much that would fucking suck? I mean, it would be different if it was like, character selector, what family do you want to be a part of? And I was like, yeah, I want to be a Sith. I want to be a Sith. Yeah, sure. But it's not like anybody chooses who they give, who've been given the gift of life from. You know what I'm saying? Like, this ain't a fucking gotcha game. This ain't a video game. What are we doing here?
Innocent of wrongdoing because the stabbing was self-defense. Now, I agree that everyone deserves their day in court, and Carmelo deserves due process. However, after reading the police report, the likelihood that this will qualify as self-defense in court is almost zero. I'll be adding some extra context to the report, but here it is. There was a light drizzle outside during the track meet, and the officer reported that Carmelo was under a tent that was designated for a different school. Because of that, Austin Metcalf, the victim, and his brother Hunter Metcalf asked Carmelo to leave. Carmelo refused to leave and responded by saying, "Touch me and see what happens." After continuing to refuse to leave, at some point Carmelo is pushed by the victim, Austin, and then he follows that by saying, "Punch me and see what happens." Last, Carmelo stabs Austin Metcalf, runs away, and ditches the murder weapon. Now, there are a couple of different versions of the story with slight alterations, so I'll let Austin's brother Hunter...
Yeah, I'll be real. I just feel like we just didn't need to, like, stab somebody like that. You know, I I feel like that's a little bit of an overreaction. I think this level of overreaction kind of quantifies as Mr. Pokey's reaction to Saber being released in Honkai Star Rail. Little bit much. Little bit much, don't we think?
Hunter,
I really feel like we should not be rewarding this type of behavior with $500,000. I just feel like we should not be doing that.
standing right next to him, say what happened.
Your mom told me that you were there.
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't mind, what happened?
There was this kid, before I knew his name now, this kid was sitting under our tent at track. We asked him to move. He started getting aggressive and talking reckless. And my brother stopped it and said, "You need to move." And he's like, "Make me move." Austin grabbed his backpack. This kid, I tried to whip around as fast as I could, but I didn't see the stab. And I look at my brother, and I'm not going to talk about the rest. So that's just what I saw.
So to argue for self-defense in Texas, your life has to be in immediate danger. Now, the BLM types will point out that the two Metcalf brothers were quite a bit larger than Carmelo, and that's why his life was in danger. However, this happened in broad daylight, and a ton of people were around.
Did they think that they were going to kill this fucking guy for being underneath their tent? What?
And the Metcalf brothers showed no intent of using heavy or lethal force.
There was never a punch even thrown. So I don't care. There was never a phone broken. We've never had contact with this individual ever.
Not only that, but let's bring up that statute again. In the law, it says that if you provoke the person who you used lethal force against, which Carmelo reportedly did, then you can't claim it's self-defense. So in my amateur internet lawyer opinion, Carmelo is screwed. You don't get to stab someone because they picked up your bag and pushed you after you asked them to put hands on you. I mean, if someone got stabbed every time a kid was pushed when I was in school, then at least half the student population wouldn't have lived to see graduation.
I would have killed so many people if you were allowed to do this. Like, legit, bro. I was like being thrown into fucking lockers, like being pushed downstairs. I even had a guy put a knife against my throat. I was kneed in the jaw. I was held in armbar. Obviously, once I became a senior and I was bigger, then I bullied the bullies. And I'm not going to lie, I did some pretty bad shit too. I'm just not going to fucking lie. You know what I mean? But like, I would only beat up people who were bullying people. That's it, right? Like, I remember there was this kid, it was this fucking small little fucking Mexican kid. And he was harassing a fucking girl. He was being weird. He was trying to take photos of like their ass. And fucking school. So I fucking take this kid. I'm like a fucking senior. He's like a 10th grader, 11th grader, but he was real short. I just threw this kid into a fucking trash can, then I sat on it for like half an hour, and I just played Pokemon. I'm able to push things like 2,000 pounds and 2,000 times my size. Case in point, I'm able to push Shinya on the swing with relative ease, and this guy's 8,000 fucking pounds, right?
Doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's just because the kid was mad, my son is not here anymore, and I don't understand it.
Right, that's what it sounds like. He was looking for a fight or looking to steal people's unprotected items like this commenter said. He ended up causing that fight and then used lethal force because he was mad. And now not only is this 17-year-old kid permanently scarred from having to watch his twin brother die while frantically trying to keep him alive, but Carmelo also emotionally scarred everyone close to Austin Metcalf.
My other son is just crushed. And I feel for him now, and he'll never be the same. None of us will. Grief, we all go through it, but the thing about grief is you don't get over it. You just learn to live with it.
Yeah, I don't think you ever really get over your son dying or your brother dying or your best friend dying. I've known plenty of people who've had those they were close to die, and they still aren't over it like a decade later or more. So understand why a lot of people are outraged that Carmelo's school still wants to allow him to graduate, despite the fact that even if he did get off with a self-defense charge, which he almost certainly won't, he still brought a weapon to school and started a fight, which is easy grounds for expulsion. Why should he get to graduate after breaking school rules when Austin Metcalf will never get to graduate? And so, because Carmelo is almost certainly guilty of murder, unless there's some info that we're unaware of, the racial grift must begin to try to beat the charges. And the grift is quite ridiculous. I mean, Carmelo and his legal team are some of the dumbest criminals on the planet. You can read the full police report where it says that an officer called Carmelo the alleged suspect, followed by Carmelo spontaneously saying, "I'm not alleged, I did it." Literally confessed to a murder right in front of the police. Even worse for Carmelo's defense, his family picked some black activist lawyer named Dominic Alexander, who I swear is just like that race-grifting character from that episode of the Boondocks, where they tried to bully the school for $500,000 because a teacher said the N-word.
I have a message for the Woodcrest School District.
Bravo, good love. What's that stupid hustler doing here?
You have assaulted this fine family's dignity, you have assassinated their pride, and you have hurt their feelings. Now, somebody gonna pay.
Don't listen to him, Granddad. He just wants to use us to get press for a stupid sitcom on BET.
The scary thing is that this episode of the Boondocks is almost 20 years old, and it still applies like it was written yesterday. So Carmelo's lawyer and his activist group hold this press conference to, I guess, give everyone a more positive outlook on the defendant. Let's take a look.
Y'all, I'm Minister Dominique Alexander. I serve as the president of the Next Generation Action Network. Today, I come before you with a heavy heart, but determined in spirit, not just as an advocate, but as a black man. Black people in America don't have to pull the race card. I ain't pulling no race card. I live it. I'm reminded all the time that I'm a black man in America.
I mean, if you don't want to be reminded of your race, then maybe you shouldn't open up your speech with, as a black man, as you use this press conference to promote your race-based activist group.
This is not just about Carmelo. It's about the family who dared to stand and demand justice and a return and receive ugliness that racism in this country still breeds. As the president of the Next Generation Action Network, we will never ask the oppressor for permission to liberate our people. We are not scared. We are not moving.
Wait, did I just hear a smoke detector beep?
We are not moving.
Anyway, I love how the family of the killer's immediate legal strategy is to poison the culture into a race war in the hopes of getting special treatment from the legal system. Real generous of you to not only harm the Metcalfs with this event, but also the entirety of America. You guys are real assholes. This is despite the fact that Austin's father, Jeff Metcalf, who is actually a victim, who was actually wronged, and has been swatted multiple times over this event, went on the news earlier before this press conference saying that he didn't want to escalate this by making it about race.
This is not a race issue. This is not a black and white issue.
Absolutely.
I don't want someone stepping up on the soapbox trying to politicize this. I've already forgiven the person who stabbed him. God's going to take care of everything.
That's the problem, though, right? Is that whenever a black person is involved in a white person is involved in a black person, everybody immediately makes it a fucking race thing. Immediately. Whenever a guy insults a girl, they immediately make it a misogyny issue, right? And that's what's so fucking annoying. Like, this isn't a race issue. It's a bad people issue, but people force it to be about race. And that's what's really bad. And I'm sure everybody is already thinking in their mind that if you were to reverse the roles and it was a white guy that stabbed a black kid to death, it would be a much worse situation for that person's family. And I think it's really bad that we as society are already conditioned to even think of that, because that's what the internet has conditioned us to do. And that's what sucks.
If we all don't come together, black, white, yellow, brown, I don't care. It's all about human beings.
Wow, I don't know how many visits to a church it takes to get that kind of peaceful mentality, but if it was my kid, I wouldn't have been so nice. Actually, Jeff Metcalf happened to show up to the Carmelo press conference to, I guess, break bread and pray with him in the hopes of making peace and showing unity. But of course, Carmelo's team's legal strategy is to increase division, so they didn't want Jeff Metcalf there, and Carmelo's lawyer handles his presence at the conference in the worst possible way.
What we've seen at the beginning of this press conference, the father being at this press conference, is a disrespect to the dignity of his son. Next Generation Action Network.
Right. Don't forget to plug the name of your organization 20 more times while the cameras are rolling.
From the beginning, has respected the loss of life. And all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real. I think this lawyer is such a fucking disingenuous liar.
So it don't be asked later. As that was disrespectful, who was not invited, he knows that it's inappropriate to be near this family.
Brother, their kid killed another kid for no fucking reason. And even if there was a reason, a way less extreme reason, like, hey man, this is our tent, you can't be here. Okay, I'm gonna fucking kill you now. Why are we acting like this guy who was attempting to make peace is in the wrong? Like, what the fuck?
But he did it.
We were asking him repeatedly to leave. And literally, he wouldn't even talk. He wouldn't even say anything. He felt like he could just stand there. It was very upsetting to me.
Now, what I find curious about this...
Oh my God, guys. He was standing there. Man, that's fucking terrible.
...here is how the victim's father was asked to leave the area, and he was able to do that without killing anyone. The irony here is just great. But anyway, this press conference is full of Carmelo's family playing the victim, trying to increase racial tension, and telling a number of lies. Here's a lie that I found to be the most ridiculous while they were talking about Carmelo's right to a trial.
He should be afforded the same rights that Kyle Rittenhouse had. Nobody in the public media has one video camera, but we got the video of Kyle Rittenhouse with an AK-47 shooting 3 people in the back. We got that, and he raised more than $2 million publicly, and nobody says anything.
I mean, I agree that Carmelo deserves his day in court and deserves to argue in his defense, but that statement about Kyle Rittenhouse was so factually inaccurate that they should have fired that lawyer right on the spot for saying it. Not only did he say the wrong gun, but Kyle shot 3 people in the back? Bro, there is literally evidence of the first guy threatening to kill Kyle with a weapon before he was shot. You also have video of Kyle being chased and violently assaulted by a mob, and you have Gage Grosskreutz testifying in court that he had a loaded firearm aimed at Kyle before he was shot.
Mr. Grosskreutz, I'm gonna...
Yeah, I think it's insane how lawyers do this shit where they just lie to gain public favor in any way, shape, or form, appeal to whatever mob they possibly can in order to scare people away from getting justice.
Show you what has been marked as Exhibit 67. That's a photo of you, yes?
Yes.
Okay. That's Mr. Rittenhouse?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you'd agree your firearm is pointed at Mr. Rittenhouse, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you were standing 3 to 5 feet from him with your arms up in the air, he never fired, right?
Correct.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
After I heard Carmelo's lawyer say that stuff about Kyle, I just started laughing. You can't get something that factually wrong and call yourself a lawyer. You'll get destroyed in a courtroom.
It doesn't matter if you lie to public opinion, though, because nobody will fact check anything. And that's why so many people get away with destroying other people's careers, because all you have to do is cry, say, this is so sad, this person did this, and everybody will gobble it up if they were already looking for an excuse to shit on this person or support a cause. Yeah, the majority of public is too lazy to research anything.
But good news for everyone who wants justice for Austin Metcalf, though I guess all this makes sense when you consider that this lawyer has been arrested multiple times, one of them being for violently abusing and hospitalizing a 2-year-old, so Carmelo's family literally picked the worst possible man to argue in his defense.
My name is Kayla Hayes. I am the mother of Carmelo Anthony. He's been raised in a 2-parent home with structure, stability, love, and we put God first in everything that we do.
If he's really from a 2-parent home with stability, why do you have different last names? Something's being left out here. Also, why do you look like you're under 30 with a 17-year-old? How old were you when you had him? Lots of questions here. Anyway, again, more and more people are getting really tired of everything being called racist, especially when that's being used to cover up a crime. And because of that, a situation that happened on the week of April 28th, 2020.
Man, these people are really mad that this kid killed this other kid. It must be because they're racist. Oh, okay. I didn't consider that perspective. You know what? Maybe you do have a point.
25, involving a white woman named Shiloh Hendricks.
Oh, here we
became a
go.
huge event because she was recorded in a park saying some offensive words. Now, understand that in order to make this next video YouTube-friendly, I have to censor some stuff, so know that anytime that the audio is cut, it's because the N-word is being said.
Did you call him a child? Did you call the child the N-word? It is my business. You call him an N-word? Okay, why don't you have the boss to say it right now again?
I love how the guy's big issue was that the N-word was said in front of children, as he immediately proceeds to not only say the N-word a number of times, but also encourages the woman to repeat the word.
All right, that's what you say.
Say the N-word, say the N-word, say the N-word, says the N-word. Like, what are we doing, too? That is actually so insane. Like, why don't you just stop provoking people? Like, what are we doing here? Hit me, hit me, hit me, hit me, hit me. Woo! He hit me. What is this?
Nobody dig into your shit.
A little fucking kid just did, you dumbass.
That little kid, you call him the little child? Are you about to hit him? You chase him here?
I would like to say, I'm not justifying that word at all, but stop telling people to do things and then be surprised when they do those things.
He took my son's stuff.
So that gives you the right to call the child 5-year-old and the N-word?
If that's what he's gonna act
That's
like.
what you're gonna call him?
That's what he's gonna act like.
You know, that's a hate speech. And you can be recorded for that.
I don't give a shit.
Huh.
Yes, you can definitely be recorded if you say something in public. However, hate speech is not a thing in America, and contrary to what social media is trying to get everyone to believe, saying the N-word is not illegal. This guy better hope it's not, because he said it a bunch of times, unless he's saying that laws should apply differently based on race, and I could have sworn that America went through a whole civil rights movement to make such things illegal. Anyway, what happened was that a black child tried to take something from this lady Shiloh's bag, and in retaliation, she called him the N-word. Now, is it wrong to call a kid a racial slur?
Of course.
Of course it is.
Of course.
Is it illegal? Well,
No.
I'm not a lawyer, but probably not. Kids get called names all the time by adults, and I don't think that people are being arrested left and right for that. The cops are more concerned with did you hit them or engage in extreme verbal abuse like screaming or threatening them. Now, should Shiloh receive harsh criticism for doing this?
Is the guy recording a pedophile? That information came out, but I looked into it, and it seems like a falsity. I don't believe he was actually a pedophile. I think that was a lie that was made up by social media. That's why I always research everything whenever I can. But yeah.
Absolutely. If it was my kid she called a racial slur, I would be pretty mad. However,
unless someone can prove me that. But I thought that information was debunked.
I don't think it's a crime. But as I said, the video went viral, and the internet ended up doxing her address, her phone number, and much worse, leaked her social security number. I imagine that this was also compounded by lots of threats because that's what usually happens in these cases. And so Shiloh started a Give, Send, Go campaign on May 1st to help her pay for some of the expenses of having all her information leaked. My name is Shiloh, and I've been put in a very dire situation.
Holy fuck, she made $800,000? Jesus.
I recently had a kid steal from my 18-month-old son's diaper bag at a park. I called the kid out for what he was. Okay, so I don't think anyone's denying that this lady is at least a little bit racist, but trying to ruin a woman's entire life and threaten her safety because a word was said is inappropriate. Think of all the non-white people who constantly say racist shit and they receive no consequences at all. Think of stuff like this children's book here that teaches anti-white racism to kids, or the social experiment that British television did that taught kids based on a racist narrative. No one is having their lives ruined.
I'll be real. I think we should probably stop rewarding people for bad behavior, though. To be completely honest, you know what I mean? Like that's just me, though. You know, I feel like we should stop rewarding people for bad behavior, but that's just me.
Over those things, so maybe just have Shiloh apologize to the child and the family, and have her take a course on how to manage undesirable behavior from children without calling them racial slurs. You know, have the punishment fit the crime. But since Carmelo Anthony got hundreds of thousands of dollars on Give, Send, Go for killing a student, and he was being glorified for doing that, and because Shiloh opened up her Give, Send, Go account just a couple weeks later, in response, the internet started donating to Shiloh like crazy, and we got some competitive racism in the form of charity. We had people on Team White donating $2,000 to help spell out the N-word, and people on Team Black were donating to share how they were happy that Carmelo ended the life of a white kid, until Give, Send, Go removed the ability to comment on both campaigns, which...
Yeah, I'll be real. I feel like maybe we just shouldn't have awarded either of them. And it is insane how we're now in big 2025, and the new competitive game mode that just released in League of Legends is competitive racism.
Pissed a lot of people off because the comments were only removed after Shiloh began her campaign, and it was like a day after. Meanwhile, people have been saying racist shit and cheering on the stabbing of a white kid for weeks on Carmelo's page. Now, I will say that these comments are probably not good for the culture. However, the suggestion here is that black people can be as racist as they want towards white people, and no one cares. Meanwhile, when similar sentiments are thrown back, it's the end of the world, and now action has to be taken. This double standard is why people are mad. Both types...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, very obvious why people are mad. I mean, everybody says this, and people have been saying this for a long time, that you can't be racist towards white people. It's what people say all the time in big 2025. You can say whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't matter. You can be as derogatory and diminishing to white people, whatever the fuck you want to do for their accolades, for their livelihood, whatever you want to say to them, whatever you want to do to them, doesn't fucking matter, because they're white and they live the privileged life, which means you can do whatever the fuck you want to them. But I mean, I'll be real, man. Like, me as a guy who grew up in the fucking ghetto, me as a guy who was fucking homeless, I don't really think I lived that privilege of a life. I'm going to be real, guys. Out of curiosity, guys, how many of you are white and you lived like a rich boy, fancy schmancy mansion life, eating caviar every fucking day, eating lunch please and primes at every fucking meal? Probably not too many, to be honest. Yeah, I think it's fucking bullshit. And guys, I'll say this. I really feel like you absolutely can be racist towards white people. Or it's not racism, it's prejudice. I think that people should be a little bit more cognizant of how white people do get a lot of shit on social media and are pretty much told they're not allowed to defend themselves because their ancestors had it good. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not me. So anyways.
Types of racism are bad, but only one gets punished. So far, Carmelo's campaign has raised $530,000, and Shiloh has raised $780,000. To which, I think in both cases, the money couldn't have gone to less deserving people. Obviously, I'm more sympathetic to Shiloh because her sin was far less severe.
Oh, and I'm going to say this, guys. Big controversial take. This might alienate a lot of my audience. I think racism is bad. Yep, I'll just go ahead and say it.
However, despite that the reaction to what she did was way out of line, I'm not a fan of a person being essentially rewarded with close to $1 million for doing a bad thing. But again, the reason that she got so much money is because of over a decade of unmitigated racism towards white people from the mainstream media, activists, colleges, politicians, and human resources departments. For over 10 years, people have been making some of the most evil and prejudiced accusations towards whites. However, if you say something reasonable like, hey, maybe don't drive a car while you're under the influence of fentanyl, they will have a meltdown and try to ruin your entire life. I mean, you had people saying shit like this on social media, and nothing would happen, but if you said a man is a man on social media, then you could lose your livelihood. And the legacy media types are still trying to maintain this as a status quo.
I've been telling people this for 6.5 years, even longer than that, since before I was a content creator, how white people are the punching bag of the internet. And I get told that I'm an alt-right grifter. And I'm just like, brother, I want to remind you guys of 4 years ago now, that when I played Arc Knights, the community managers told people to stop watching me because I was white and to support our Asian creators instead. Yes. Yeah. I want to remind you guys how I'm called a white pig and a white devil on the Chinese Bilibili forums every single fucking day. Yet I don't see anybody on YouTube shitting on anybody else for being Asian and or black. It's kind of bullshit. It really is.
In response to the 2 fundraisers on GiveSendGo, Piers Morgan did a panel and interviewed a co-founder of the website in a video where I can only imagine it was Piers' goal to increase racial tension.
In the case of Shiloh Hendricks, it seems to be pretty open and shut. This is a woman on camera repeatedly using the N-word, first of all with a 5-year-old autistic child, it seems, then an adult who's filming her, doesn't care, is blatantly racist. Why should someone like that be allowed to raise any money on your site if, as you say, you are driven by a Christian purpose?
Well, that's a fascinating question. I would almost flip it around. It's like if we tried to create litmus tests for everybody to come onto a platform to use it, I pretty much could guarantee nobody would pass the litmus test, because the reality of humanity is that we're broken.
So you would let anybody on?
That's a very fair take.
Onto your platform to raise money for anything? Is that your position?
No, the position is that there are laws that define what is legal and what isn't legal, and we adhere to the laws as the framework for what is and isn't allowed.
Yes, that basically should be the line for all these social media websites. In fact, in America, legally, they're supposed to behave like GiveSendGo to retain certain protections.
The problem is people want to enslave people and jail people for their hurt feelings, which just isn't how the world works in 2025.
But the government loves to not enforce the law.
Thank you for proving my point. Thank you for proving my point. You just made this video so much easier. Goober McGav 8008. We in here really talking about white racism from a white guy. Boo fucking who, my guy. Now imagine that guy said that about any other race.
This team has done some research and has found that GiveSendGo is a Christian website, and because of that, there are certain behaviors that they actually don't allow.
Well, I'll say historically, we've stood on that principle of saying we're going to allow things that we disagree with.
Okay.
And we've allowed things that we completely disagree with.
Do you allow
on the
people to
platform.
do
But our
pro-abortion?
mission-
Do you allow pro-abortion fundraising?
Actually, there's 2 caveats to what GiveSendGo has carved out, and one of them is it's broken into 2 pieces, but it's the protection of children. So we say we're going to protect children because they don't have a voice. So we're not going to allow fundraising for abortions on GiveSendGo, and we're not going to allow fundraising for the transition of children.
Right, he's a hypocrite, which would have been a great gotcha moment for Piers if it wasn't for the fact that in many states, abortion and transitioning children is a crime. In fact, it seems like Piers is not very informed on U.S. law.
Piers has always been a fucking idiot for years. Straight up, bro. Every now and then he'll get a hit, but 99 times out of 100, the guy is fucking retarded.
At all.
Inciting racial hatred is a crime, right?
Inciting racial hatred is a crime?
Yeah.
Where?
You don't think it's a crime?
In the U.S.?
Yeah, it is.
I've never seen that as a law on the books. But
it is.
That was part of the reason.
I'm not even American, and I know it's a law on the books. You're not allowed to.
All right, so I Googled it, and it said under current First Amendment jurisprudence, hate speech can only be criminalized when it directly incites imminent criminal activity or consists of specific threats of violence towards against a person or group. So no, that instance, no, it was not a crime. Just being factual here.
Incite racial hatred or violence against ethnic groups based on their ethnicity. What could be a more glaring example than someone on camera?
I find it insane that someone fancies themselves a professional in this space can't even be bothered to do a simple Google search.
Calling black people the N-word.
Yeah, Piers, that's not a crime. I mean, groups like Antifa and BLM and news reporters, as well as a number of U.S. senators and congressmen better hope that's not a crime, because they're going to jail if that's the case. And really, the most disgusting thing about modern social media is that you can...
I'd like to make it very clear. Saying that word, not good to do, guys. Not good to do. Not a good thing to do, right? But it's not a crime.
You can do or say one bad thing, and you're banned forever. There's no path to redemption, and if you keep it like that, eventually people are going to see no reason to be good. Everyone does something bad at some point, so why strive to make amends for any wrongdoing if people will never accept you anyway?
3 years ago in New York City, in the middle of the city, there was an altercation between a woman and a black man over bird watching and dogs, and her name was Amy Cooper. And to this day, 3 years later, she hasn't been...
What's insane is that the majority of this video is about how people should just not make it about race. It's about people being shitty as fuck and then making it about race. And this guy is so retarded, he can't even understand that.
Been able to find a job. She's been, because she made a bad mistake, saying the wrong thing.
He then self-inserts himself into this conversation and gets upset when everyone's not immediately on his side. It's insane.
In a particular moment,
well, she racially abused him. She racially abused him. If you racially abuse people,
And then I made the comment of, Yeah, I'll be real. A lot of people are allowed to be racist towards white people by everyone saying you can't be racist towards white people and pointing out how that's a complete double fucking standard. And that's the hill that he wants to die on, is that's boo-hoo mentality. That's literally me advocating for equal treatment of all fucking races, which is what we all want here. And that's what triggered this guy. But he's so fucking dumb. He's been brainwashed by his progressive woke, probably closeted lesbian girlfriend into her political values that she learned off of BuzzFeed and thelemon.com, that now he's become radicalized and has to fight her battles on Chatterino to a random 5,000 viewer Twitch streamer. That's what he's doing with his day. That's what dumb fucks we're dealing with. And that's enemy number one we see and victim number one we see on Twitter.
You are made accountable for your actions.
So for the rest of your life, the rest of your life, you're shut off from society.
If you call black people the N-word and racially abuse them, unfortunately, yes, it has consequences, probably for your professional life,
No, I'm not saying,
for the rest of your professional life.
We understand that there are consequences. Yeah. I understand there's consequences. What I'm saying is what you're advocating for.
Bro is trying to moral grandstand, trying to get this guy to admit that he thinks saying the N-word is fine when he doesn't. He's just merely stating that it's not a crime. And I feel like this is such manipulative tactics to force this guy into a corner that he really shouldn't be in right now. I just feel like it's fucking pathetic. Everybody knows saying any racial slur is fucking bad. Everybody knows it.
Or it seems is that for the rest of Shiloh's life, she should be pushed into the recesses of society, and that she should not have a voice, that she should be canceled and silenced. This is what drives people to suicide. And it's this cancel culture mantra that thinks that the best way forward as a society is to cancel them rather than try to bring some redemption into the situation.
Yes, the constant double standards and the lack of ability to be redeemed is driving people insane. Basically what Piers is saying is that if you do one bad thing, then you should die. Because what's the difference between saying that and telling people they have to starve because no company should ever hire them? This kind of mentality is exactly why Shiloh got so much money and why she got rewarded for doing something wrong.
I would like to reiterate, I really don't think she should have gotten $1 million for saying the N-word. It's kind of like the Carmelo and the white bitches whole thing really wasn't what they did. It's how people felt about what they did. And kind of like the underlying bubbling that's been happening beneath the surface.
The idea is that Piers is spreading are only going to increase racism, and quite honestly, I don't think these people are stupid. I think they're doing it on purpose. Instead of spending time trying to understand his opponent's perspective, Piers spends the entire interview trying to get a gotcha moment on the Give Send Go co-founder, while completely ignoring the much worse thing that Carmelo Anthony did. All Piers does is talk about bad things that white people have done.
And I will say, guys, killing people is worse than saying the N-word. I know. Hot take. But I think murder is pretty much probably the second worst thing that you can do. There's a lot of people that are put on this earth with something wrong in their brain. And they don't choose to have that thing put in their brain. But it's still up to them to not act on what was put in our brain. However, society allows some people to listen to that wrong thing that was put in their fucking head. So it's like, for example, I'm schizophrenic. I get really bad thoughts in my head. I don't act on the thoughts that I have in my head. That's up to me to not act on that. And I would be upset at society if people told me, no, you listen to those thoughts. And I think it's very not healthy when people tell some people with mental illnesses to listen to those voices in their heads, right? Because there's something wrong, right? And so that's essentially, and I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at that. Yep, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at that. Let's keep going here.
And tries to frame the Give Send Go co-founder in the worst possible way.
I'm told that the Give Send Go site for Luigi Mangione, who we saw allegedly executing a healthcare boss in cold blood. I don't think there's much allegedly about it, but we'll let the process take its course. He's got nearly £1 million for his defence via your site. The bottom line, Mr. Wells, I appreciate you coming on, but the bottom line is the reality of the situation is that if you racially abuse a kid, you can become a millionaire on your site and you won't stop it happening. And if you kill somebody or allegedly kill somebody, you won't stop that happening either. But with your Christian hat on, if somebody wants to put anything up that's pro-abortion, whoa, not having that, Gov.
To be clear, when he said murderer, he meant Luigi, not Carmelo. I mean, it's really hard to pretend that you're trying to fix racism or racial abuse when you spend an hour saying that a woman's life should be
Yeah, I'll be real. I think both are bad. You know what I'm saying?
over and she should be criminally prosecuted for saying a word while completely ignoring the guy who provoked a fight and stabbed a high school.
Once again, I don't think the chick should necessarily have her life ruined over that, but I sure as fuck don't think that she should be rewarded for that.
Schooler because he didn't want to move to a different tent. One of these is 100 times worse than the other, and giving the harshest possible criticism to the less bad thing while completely ignoring the other makes you seem like a terrible person. Oh, but I guess it's okay because it's not possible to be racist against white people, right?
You know, this idea of
Oh God. Oh God. Here we go. Here we go. Yo, Goober King, are you still in chat? Are you ready for this?
Of one side to the other side often loses track of this issue of power. To use as example, when black people stand up and say, hey, let's build our own stuff. Hey, let's have a black power movement. When a black person says, hey, let's preserve our culture, I have no problem with Italians or Irish people or anyone else saying, let's preserve our culture. But when we don't talk about ethnicity, but actual race, when white people say, let's preserve whiteness, it's an exclusionary practice. It's about preserving laws and practices and tactics that do harm to other people. A black power movement was about opening stores and building businesses. A white power movement was about something very, 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 very different. A white power movement included lynchings and included Ku Klux Klan, etc. So let's not pretend that these are opposite sides of the same coin. When white people say, let's save our country, and even using the language of our country, when black people built this thing, when you say that, you're talking about forcing people out of the country. You're talking about laws that discriminate. You're talking about doing harm to people.
Right, because affirmative action doesn't exist and the summer of 2020 never happened. Racist black people have never caused a riot before, only a mostly peaceful protest. Someone in the comments pointed out that they censored every use of the N-word on Piers' show, but when white racial slurs were used, they weren't censored, which is true. They clearly think that one form of racism matters a lot less than the other, and when you have a two-tiered system like that, all you're going to do is increase racial hatred and increase racial prejudice. Also, the more you make every single negative interaction a race issue, the more the racial divide will increase. And like I said, I don't think that people like Piers or anyone else that has race grifted in this video is stupid. I think they're doing it on purpose. There's a lot of money to be made in race grifting, and from a political standpoint, the more we spend time fighting over dumb racial issues, the less we unite against corrupt politicians or corrupt business practices. And the crazy thing is that recently I saw a post that said this: Gen Z has no idea that back in the 90s, basically everyone just got along with race and stuff. It's really bad they don't know firsthand that was possible. Right. I grew up in the 90s and no one gave a shit about race. In fact, when I was 19, I worked at a job with a ton of black people. We all got along, and in the 2.5 years that I worked there, no one brought up race. Racism was on...
That's a really strange point that I've never considered before. Wow, that's really interesting to think about.
Life support, and we used to live in a country that was pretty free of racial prejudice until 2014 when colleges started performing CPR on racism by talking about microaggressions. But as I said, the good news is that everyone's getting tired of this. And I've also noticed a particular distaste coming from black people. In fact, despite how many racists there were donating to Carmelo Anthony and cheering on the death of a white kid, it was actually much easier for me to find black people criticizing all of this than any other race.
Makes my blood boil. Put that kid, Carmelo, put him under the jail. I don't want him to, I want his life to be over personally.
It's hard to put into words how upsetting this is, but I do not think Carmelo Anthony's bail should have been lowered from $1 million. In fact, I don't even think it should have been offered. I think he should be in jail right now.
Jeff McCabe had got swatted, 3 or 4 times? Threats sent to Hunter, his mom, but y'all made Carmelo out to be the victim and his family?
These aren't even all the black people that I found saying they were tired of all the race baiting and BLM excusing crime while trying to make criminals look like heroes.
This young man
is starting to become a complete scam.
It's been a scam since BLM, brother.
Probably
BLM
was.
said,
It's probably was before that.
BLM said, our mission is to destroy the nuclear family.
Right. BLM is not your friend. They want to destroy black families. Do you know what happens to kids without a family structure? They get physically abused and sexually abused. They get put in gangs. They develop drug problems. This is terrible for black people like it would be.
You know, even as a white kid, I grew up in the ghetto. I tried to get, someone attempted to draft me into MS-13. And what really sucks is after that happened, I never really left my house anymore. And I moved to a different city. But my homie, and I guess I'll say it, his name was Sean. He was black. My best friend. Loved this guy to bits. I left, and I was kind of like the only friend he had, and he joined MS-13. And I don't know what he did, but I found out 3 years later he was sent to jail. Yeah, and he's still in jail to today. I don't know what he did ever. But he was one of the kindest people I ever met. But I think once I moved away and he didn't have anybody else, I think he looked for some way to outreach and make new people, and he got involved with the wrong crew very quickly. And it's kind of scary to think that if I had taken that opportunity, my life would be very different right now. So it's kind of fucked, man. I got no idea. I got no idea. I swear to God, he was the kindest, most giving person I ever met too. He was so nice. His mother, I'm not going to say her name to dox her, sweet as a button. Legit, they would invite me over every day. I would wake up immediately, and he was my next door neighbor, and I would go to his house every fucking day. They would give me food, they would give me water, even though they also had no fucking money, right? So after hanging out with him for like every day for like maybe like 2-3 years, I was really happy because then my dad wrote that family a check because he didn't realize they didn't have it like that. So that was kind of lit. Asking him to do that for them because I told him about how hard they had it, and yeah, it's kind of fucked up, man. It's kind of fucked up. Was MS-13 or was some dumbass middle school quote? No, it was MS-13. Yeah, actual MS-13. Yeah.
It would be terrible for any race.
I thought MS-13 only took Latin Americans. Well, maybe there was a different section.
How can you say Black Lives Matter when you want to destroy black families? And really, the best middle finger we can give to all these grifting assholes is to get along and be friends. I think actually one of the people that I clipped earlier who was a therapist made a good point.
Sadly, many young people today have no conflict resolution skills. They're taught to fight. They're taught if one person touches you, you better double it. They say if they push you, make sure they don't get up from the fight. And this is such a prevalent mentality that I've seen in all races.
Well, it's that.
That's really bad because I have that exact mentality. And to be honest, I think that's what's kept me safe until big 2025. I'll be real. If somebody fucks with me, I fuck with them back 10 million times harder, to be honest.
Or cancel culture.
I'm not even going to deny that.
Behavior where you get ousted from the group for making one misstep instead of talking it out with everyone. All of this is about conflict resolution. The worse we are at that, the more society will suck. The reality is that both the Shiloh and the Carmelo situations could have been easily solved with the most basic conflict resolution skills. Instead of calling the kid the N-word, Shiloh could have simply realized that kids of all races don't really have a strong sense of personal property until they hit a certain age, and with that idea in mind, she could have just said, hey, don't do that, and moved on with her life.
Absolutely.
As for Carmelo, all he had to do was say, oh, I'm under the wrong tent? My bad, I'll move. Easy. Everyone needs to calm down and handle conflict as politely as possible. Look to de-escalate and find peaceful solutions whenever they're available.
We gotta care about each other. We gotta be kind to each other. You need to show compassion, show empathy, not anger, not rage.
The world needs more kind people. If you can't find one, be one.
Stop being so hostile and start searching for common ground. That is how these big cultural issues will get resolved, and instead of looking for excuses to hate or dislike each other, we should be looking for excuses to get along. Last, for everyone crying it's over, the race war has begun and there's no going back, realize that because there's so much agreement from all races right now, and because there's so much dislike of all the bad actors, this whole event between Shiloh and Carmelo could actually be one of the biggest moments of unity. Now is not the time to divide people based on race. It's time to work together to get rid of all the people who profit from when we fight each other. Anyway, thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be real. I feel like a lot of the political content creators are kind of guilty of this shit as well, who just desperately wanted Donald Trump to get in there so they can make some sweet fucking videos and farm outrage and farm hysteria and farm terror every single day on stream. By the way, I was one of those people excited to watch all the Donald Trump fear-mongering content. However, it definitely is wrong to do. But I do think more people should realize, look towards the actions that are committed, not who committed those actions, and stop being so quick to profile, because a lot of these issues aren't race issues. They're just bad people issues. And I think we need to stop looking to call people homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic, racist, all that shit, that, and the other, because humans are humans, and these things are majorly human issues. Yes, there are issues between races, absolutely, and those should be tackled and addressed. However, not everything is a race issue, and that's kind of the big message that I would like to be sent home to everybody watching this shit. Thanks for watching. Great video.